Marketing strategies as applied to online dating, cold calling. If you've ever had those telemarketing calls where someone calls you up and says, "Have you ever considered buying blah, 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 whatever the product is," and have interrupted your dinner and you're totally pissed off because they called you, you've probably experienced cold calling. From a business-to-business standpoint, cold calling is really about saying, "I have this great service, it's so awesome, anybody who hears about it would want it, so I'm going to pay telemarketers to call other businesses and say, 'Hey, can I talk to the person in the following department about my product?'" And they tell you how great it is over the phone, having never heard about it before. Cold calling is really about a numbers game, and so you have to do a lot of it in order to get anywhere. In the dating scenario, this could work one of two ways. One, you could go through the phone book and call them up and say, "Brandon Wirtz is great in bed. How would you like to date Brandon Wirtz?" And you could hope that some of the people in the phone book were single and female and anything else that would need. A slight variation on cold calling is purchased leads, where you have a list of people in a segment that has a higher conversion rate. So, for example, you sell a product that works well for doctors and medical institutions. So you'd buy a list of phone numbers of doctors and medical institutions and you'd call those people. The dating equivalent would be that I walk up to the waitress and I say, "Hey, do you have the phone number of that girl over there?" And once I've got her cell phone number, I call her up and I say, "Hey, Brandon Wirtz is great in bed. How'd you like to go home with him?" And again, it may or may not be effective. It depends on how good your sales pitch is. But it's going to have a much higher rejection rate than a lot of the other forms of marketing. The advantage of cold calling is that the cost is relatively low and the impact level is fairly high because you have somebody on the phone. So if they're bored or lonely or lazy, they may be willing to take your call, whereas they would never have seen your ad. Depending on how good your targeting is, based on either the leads that you purchased or, in my example, getting the lead of the person that you want to talk to, you also have the advantage that you can have done selective targeting to a very razor amount. In my example with the girl in the bar, I'm targeting the one person I'm interested in, and I have a direct way to contact them, or at least fairly close to direct way of calling them. And that gets you in the door sometimes because you can have worked on the pitch for the specific client, or at least for the specific client's industry, when you're reaching out to them for the very first time.